Verse 17. Exodus chapter 20, verse 17. And this is after the 10 Commandments were given. Thank you everybody for accommodating this change in venue. Makes it a little more tight, I know, but chapter 20, verse 17. It should be right after the 10 Commandments. So if you have the Rambans, I don't know the page number.
531.
531, then the Rambans you have in English. And then the regular, that's your book, you have 531. And then the regular Chumash, it's going to be 412. 412. Okay. Verse 17. Okay, so we all know the 10 Commandments? Yes, there were 10 commandments. They were said, they got broken, but before they got broken, okay.
There's actually 11. Right?
Is there?
Yeah. 10,
7, 6, and 5 is 11. Okay, there you go. With that, you can give the class. Okay. So, 10 commandments were given, and the people say to Moshe, they're watching the Kolam. I'm going to read 15, 16, 17 on page 412. Okay? After the commandments are listed, all the people see the kolot and the lapidim and the sounds and the lights and the kol shofar, har heshein, the mountain is filled with clouds, and they actually, the people see it and they tremble, vayamdu merachok, and they jump back. They actually seem to indicate they actually jumped back, they were so afraid. And they say to the people, Vayamar Moshe, Daber ta'amanav v'nishmo, you should speak to us and we'll listen, Vayidaber imon ol-kim penamus, and God should not speak to us because we'll die if God speaks to us. So tell me what's going on in these two psukim first of all, before you even look at a Ramban or anything. What's happening here? The people can't take it, and they kind of say, you speak to us, Moshe. So does Moshe speak to the people, or does God speak to the people, or what's going on here? Who speaks the 10 Commandments?
Well, depends on what stage. The
first view of God, good, yeah. All right. And then what about the others?
Moshe.
Looks like Moshe. So that's based upon some of what is read in here. The people are saying to Moshe, you speak them to us because we can't understand it. We don't know what's going on. The experience is too terrifying and too all-encompassing, so you be the one to speak to us. On the other hand, we know from the opening stitch of the 10 Commandments that God speaks the 10 Commandments.
Don't people die, Moshe, when God speaks the first two?
They are frozen animation. They're in frozen animation and God brings them back to life. They're shocked until they go into a deep faint.
Isn't that when they say, please, Moshe, speak?
Right, correct, exactly. It's too much. The experience is too total that they're unable to process it. In the same way that you have people will faint when their experience is so encompassing all their body functions, they completely faint out.
Wouldn't Hashem have known that?
Well, so there's the question. So if let's just say what's happening here. Somehow God gives an experience. They hear some of the commandments, they can't take it. So Moshe has to recite the other commandments. So why would God want them to do this? I mean, it looks like they don't really understand what's going on. So why would the Almighty want to present them a situation where Moshe then needs to go back and explain what they are? Any suggestions? In other words, it looks like what God did was not successful in making them be aware of what the 10 Commandments are.
Because God tests human beings.
Okay.
Then that test was a little too strong.
Maybe it was
so then the test is a failure. Then the test is a failure.
It's not a failure.
Yeah, it needs to be adjusted. Yeah, the PA system is squealing.
Maybe it's established.
I think if God spoke to anyone here, they would be in shock.
Correct, but that's correct. So why would God do this?
To establish Moshe as
it had to happen once.
To establish Moshe as a leader, as a prophet, it had to happen once.
God had to speak to the people once.
So that's probably the best answer. And I don't remember if it's Ramban or someone other commentary says that what's going on here is a total experience with the Almighty. When you have a total experience with the Almighty, you cannot compete, and therefore you are in sensory overload, and you kind of give out. But the actual experience itself is still the experience of a lifetime. You have what is sometimes used, the fancy word in English for this is a theophany. Theo is spiritual, God, theophany, experience, God experience. So just to experience God, even if you don't really fully comprehend it, right, it's still worth being. It's still important. And with God, with this moment, God establishes with the Jewish people that He is the God, and there's a communication directly to each person. Now, they don't hear it necessarily here; they hear it inside here. But this is the one time that God speaks directly to the people hear it, the people receive it. They may not understand it, they may not be able to process it, and Moshe then needs to go back and slow it down. But whatever it is, this is the moment where the Jewish people experience God's presentation to the Jewish people. And it's crucial, it's unique, and it's crucial to the Jewish faith, because it means that not only we believe in Moses, because Moses showed up and said, I'm going to do you a bunch of miracles, and God spoke to me, God spoke to the people themselves. It happens to be the experience is too much for this to happen on a regular basis, but it's important that at the beginning of the people accepting Na'aseh and Nishma will do, that they experience the totality of Hashem communicating and speaking if that's the word, or communicating directly to them, and they're receiving it.
Yeah, and they'd be carrying it on to their children afterwards. When they get asked the question,
Correct.
they'd be able to say, yes, I heard him with my own ears.
But there's a fundamental experience in the foundation of the people and in the belief of the people that God can speak to a human being and God can communicate to everybody, not just to a Moses. Most faiths are based upon the concept of a prophet showing up, prophet, quote unquote, showing up and saying, God spoke to me, and God told me to do this, and God asked me to do this. Now, maybe He did, maybe He didn't. We'll never know. So, I mean, we just had Martin Luther King Day this week in the States. Many years ago, when I lived in the States, I was asked to participate and do a reading from the Old Testament, our Bible. And I came down to, it wasn't in church, it was in like a community hall. And I got up to do on behalf of the Jewish people, and there was a black minister who got up to do on behalf of the Christian people. And I don't remember what I read, I don't remember what he read, but I remember the Christian minister got up to say, and I'm just going to do it without trying to mimic anything, and he got up to say that God told me, and God told me to read to you this here verses, and I think maybe it was in the book of, I don't know, wherever it was. I don't know what he thought God told him, or what he was a charlatan, or whether he really believed. And I like to believe that he really believed he had some divine inspiration to choose that chapter that he was going to read to them. I mean, Yeres just got up and said, okay, here's the quote I'm going to read to you. I don't remember what he read. But he got up, I remember the words were, God appeared to me, and God told me to read to you here these here verses, and he went on to go say it. So what does that mean? Did he or didn't he? I don't know. But it's not important, because it didn't really affect me. But if it did affect me, I'd want to know if God really told it to him or not, and I could never prove it or disprove it. But here at Sinai, God actually spoke or communicates with every single member of the Jewish faith community.
So to Dan's point, it really only had to be one statement.
1 second, or 1 millisecond. Right, 1 millisecond. So the way the Chazal understand it mostly is the Almighty kind of says all the 10 Commandments in one kind of, like one conglomerate together, and then God goes back and starts to repeat the first 2, and that's really where it's too much. In other words, there's a not synopsis, but there's a speeded up kind of tape that plays. It gets them all together in 1 second, and then God goes back and says the first 2. And the people say to Moses, "We can't tolerate it." Now, why did I choose the first 2 and not the first 3 and not the first 4? Because if you look in the first 2 commandments, commandment number 1 is Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I'm the Lord your God. Page number 2, page 406, the beginning of chapter 20. How does you know this? I'm the Lord your God, right? This is not something you don't know that, whether you can see it or not see it in the Chumash. So when you say I'm the Lord your God, that's not Moses speaking. If Moses were speaking, what would he say? He's the Lord your God, right? And in fact, the second commandment is what follows right afterwards: Lo yeh l'chol himachin alpanai. You shall have no other gods in my presence. It's the first person once again. That's commandment 1 and 2 are in the first person. I'm the Lord your God. Don't have no other gods in my presence. Commandment number 3 suddenly changes into the third person, which is you shall not take God's name in vain. Lo tisad shem Hashem Elokecha l'shav. Don't say take my name into vain. Don't take God's name into vain. So there's a change between commandment 1 and 2 verses 3 to 10. And all the others, the rest of the commandments are all in the third person. Keep the day of Shabbos, right? Because God rested on this, worked on 6 days, and God rested on the 7th. So a lot of them are very short. They don't refer to God. The last 5 don't refer to God. but the first 5 do. And you see there are differences between commandment 1 and 2, which are in the first person. That's God speaking. And then the people say to Moses, no, we can't take it. It's too much. You got to really slow it down and explain to us. And then Moses takes over and says, don't swear in his name. Keep the Shabbos because he rested. Honor your parents because, and so forth. Okay? So that's really, so at any rate. But it's important that this happened, even if they couldn't really digest it, just for the experience itself. Everybody has these great experiences. You go to visit places, and everybody takes away something else. You go to see a famous landmark. You see a wonder of nature. So kids take away different things, and adults take away different things. But everybody remembers the experience. Right? First time you go to Niagara Falls, first time you go to Grand Canyon, first, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So having said that, that's about the 10 Commandments in total. Now, what happens right after the 10 Commandments? So therefore, people couldn't take it. Moshe has to repeat it for them. Let's go back to 4:12 or 20:16-17. And then in verse 17, here we go, 20:17. I don't know whatever page we started with you on today. 4:12 if you got the Chumash, and 5:31 if you got the Ramban in the Hebrew English. So in verse 17, you have an important line. Moshe says to the people, don't be afraid. Ki levavur nasot etchem bo Elokim. Because God is, now look, how do they translate this in your translation? God
has come in order to test you.
Test you. They have test you, right? Here in Mr. Art Scroll, they have it as to elevate you. Right. So this goes back to something we talked about when we did Abraham taking up Isaac up on to Mount Moriah. It was called the Lakim Nisa. It's a Nisayon. The Nisayon is always viewed as a test. Remember we talked about that? And if God tests you, He knows if you're going to be successful. But to some extent, it's also when you pass the test, you've raised to another level. So there are 2 parts to being tested. One is God is going to raise you by giving you this challenge. You reach your potential. And the other is God is actually testing to see how you come about from it. So therefore, Moses says, and that's what the Ramban is going to talk about. What is the actual test here?
It's of course appropriate we talk about this with what's going on in the base of Medrash.
They're being tested, that's correct. But it's not clear if they're going to pass or not. Okay? The teachers usually know who will pass and who won't pass. But it's still not clear if the kid who's the A+ student is going to get the 98 or the 99 or the 100. There's still kind of variation. At any rate, but thank you. So God is, so I'll read again. So God came. I'm going to use the translation to test you. He's going to put his all upon you, upon your faces, that you will not sin. So what is actually the test here that they're given with the 10 Commandments? What kind of test is this? I understand the test. God says to Abraham, take your son, go up to the mountain, and go sacrifice him. That's a test. What kind of test is this?
That you'll listen.
That you'll listen and carry them out.
And carry them out.
Well, right, because they said Nasav and Nishma, but
right.
Are they going to?
So are you really going to carry through on this? But you're going to walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
Yeah.
Talk is cheap.
Right,
talk is cheap. But you're actually going to carry this out. So that's maybe one test of it. Okay, let's see the Ramban. So let's look at the Ramban on 17. This is the Ramban I want to do with you, and then we'll come to see if we can find a Nasiv Shalom. Okay, this is 2017. You guys have the page number there?
534.
534. Okay.
Still
531.
Still 531. Yeah.
Okay. And you want to give us the page, Dan, in Hebrew? You can't see it? Okay. Here it is. Page Tav Zion. Here you go. Left side. Okay. I'm sorry? Yes, it's Zion. Okay. So says the Ramban, what's L'nasot etchem? So Ramban is going to give us 3 interpretations about what this actually, 3 or 4 interpretations what it means. What is the test, or is it a test? So the first thing the Ramban says, what does this mean? Legadel etchem ba'olam. Nasot is to raise you up. And a nace, by the way, a nace is also like a banner. So a nace is raising a banner. You're going to be raised up as the banner for the people. You're going to be the moral value that people weigh themselves against. That your name will go out. It'll go out among all the nations. That God in His honor and glory revealed Himself to you. Which means nasod from nace is lashon harama ugdula. It's a term that means being high and being great and being being high. Kamo harimun ace, like Isaiah says, raise a banner, v'kanes al givah, and get up high on top of the over precipice. Shehu zakuf, which is high, which is up there. Lashon Rashi. So Rashi says the Ramban, is what is the nisayon here? It's not really a test per se. God is magnifying you by having given you these 10 commandments. You're the only people that God has communicated in this fashion. That automatically bumps you up in terms of significance around the nations of the world. Okay? So that's the first that Rashi says that. Says the Ramban, he doesn't accept that because he feels that the root of nes is really nisayon, hitnoseis. And according to Rashi, it may not actually work into the diktuk. God gave you these commandments to make you used to having faith in the Almighty. Since once God showed you the divine presence, He's put your belief in you, His amun on you to attach Him to you, to attach you to Him. And you will not become separated forever. So this, the way Ramban says, is if you're talking about nes, the Ramban seems to first say it means sometimes something that's repetitive. You will not separate from God, and you're going to have awe of God completely. This moment is going to stand in time to remember, in other words, what you were. So the Ramban is going back to explain this. The nisayon, it looks like to be, is that you will maintain this all the way in the future. You're being given like a mission almost, a test which is a mission, that God has shown you how great He is. But it's not really clear what this really has to do with nisayon. So the Ramban tries to give it, then he has to explain a little more what it is. O Yomar, or it's possible that the second part of the pasuk means not you're going to be in awe of God communicating, but the whole experience, the great fire, the cloud. You're not going to sin because of your awe that you have in God. So nisayon means to try, or means to be common, to be often, to be repetitive. So Ramban says, and he proves it with some sukkim, that here the word nisayon can be repetitive. By having this experience, you will continue to maintain your faith in me. So Rashi says, what does it mean, raise you up? Ramban says it's going to create a bond, that you'll continue to maintain that bond by having had this experience. So two pshatim so far. One is raising high like a banner. Second, according to Ramban, is nisayon or nasot is a term of ragil, to be usual and common. You have a question? Okay. So that's the second thing. So two interpretations. Now comes the part. Who said the test is whether we'll keep the mitzvot? You did, Raphael. Did you not? Okay. So the Ramban says, forgive my voice today. The Rambam writes in his guide to the perplexed, Ki amar lohem al tirau. He told the people not to be afraid. Ki zeh asher ritem. The purpose of your seeing what you saw today is not to scare you, but what is it? Because when God will test you to see if you really maintain your faith, it's really a test. What will be the test? And he'll send to you a false prophet who's going to tell you he's a prophet when he's not a prophet. You're not going to turn it all to follow this false prophet. Why? You saw the real McCoy. In other words, I'm giving you this now, so when you will be tested in the future, that someone shows up and says, I'm coming in the name of God, and I'm coming in the name of God to nullify the commandments, you won't be taken in by that because you say this guy is a charlatan, because we saw the real God, and we know what the real God is, and you don't hold a candle up to it, mister. God is testing you in the future, comes God, you'll be able to stand up against any kind of test which will weaken your faith. So far we have three interpretations. One interpretation, God is raising you. Number two, God is giving you the ability to do this constantly, to believe in Hashem because you're fortified by having the experience. And number three, I'm giving you the experience now so that when you will be tested in the future, you will stand up to the test. What's the test? Someone will come up as a false Messiah. Someone will come as a false prophet and say, follow me. You'll say, I won't follow you because I know this is what God told me about commandments.
This probably wasn't well liked by the Catholic Church in the debates.
Well, probably not. Correct. That's why Ramban had to run away.
Yeah.
And who says this, by the way? This is not the Ramban yet. This is the first one is Rashi. The second looks like it's the Ramban's take on Rashi. The third one is Maimonides' Rambam in the Guide to Perplex. Now the Ramban's going to give his take. And that's what Raphael said. V'al dati, my interpretation, says the Ramban, and until now was Rashi or his own, or Rashi, Ramban on Rashi, and the Mor Nevuchim, and now it's the Ramban's interpretation. V'al dati, the person Nisayon is Nisayon Mamish, a real test. What's the test, Yomar? I'm going to give you a test whether you're really going to keep my commandments. In order to give you a test, I have to make sure you know the curriculum. Okay, let's talk about today's test. You can only test the material if the students have been taught this. If they haven't been taught it, you can't expect them to be responsible for it. So God says, I want you to be responsible for the commandments. I want to see if you're going to carry them out. What does He got to do? He's got to give them the commandments. Now, there are only 10 commandments. What about the others?
Oh, maybe does that explain the idea that everything's contained in it?
Right, good. Okay, so let's come back to that at the end. So, but in other words, God is giving him commandments so that now that you got commandments, I can test you whether you're going to carry them out. And I'm going to see whether you love to do the commandments, and if you want to do to him and to his mitzvot. Any term of nisayon means a test, which is what we said until now. As it says in Shmuel, I'm going to go in these because I haven't been tested. I wasn't tested, see when I'll follow them. Now it says the Ramban, what kind of test is it really? Isn't this really a good stuff? So what kind of test is God testing us? He says, you keep my commandments, you get rewarded. Why wouldn't I want to keep the commandments? What kind of test do I really get?
You don't know the question yet.
No, I know the question, I know the answer, but in other words, God says, if you study for this, you're going to get a bowl of ice cream.
Oh, okay.
In other words, there's a motivator here. So what kind of test really is this kind of a test? It's taking Isaac to sacrifice Isaac. I understand the test. I got it. I understand it so well, I don't know if I could pass it. Right? And I don't know if God would give me that test because He would only give me a test if He knows I'm going to pass. But what kind of test is it? Will you follow my commandments because I'm going to reward you? Why would I not want to do this? Right? I mean, take something as simple as when God says, honor your parents. What He says, honor your parents, your mother and mother, that your life will be extended. Well, if that's really true,
you have to appreciate the reward.
Well, I have to appreciate the reward. God tells me the reward. I'm going to have long days.
Human being has got to appreciate what that reward is. Most of us don't.
So one answer is that we don't appreciate the reward because we want the reward right now.
That's right. It's like that.
I want that ice cream right today. I don't want to have to come back on Monday for the ice cream. I don't want the ice cream next year. Right? I can't see long term. Right? You tell a student, if you don't pass the course, you go to summer school. That's a motivator, but not every kid passes.
Or you can have one now, but 3 tomorrow,
Well, that's the whole thing, right? Like the reward in Olam Haba. How many people want to wait for Olam Haba?
Right.
They want it in this world.
Right. So no, that's the question. Am I rewarded here, rewarded in Olam Haba? And even if I'm rewarded here, I don't really see it. You tell me my days will be lengthened, but I don't know what my days were supposed to be. I don't know if I was supposed to be 80 and now I live to 81. Or I live to 90. I was supposed to be only 40 and now I live to 81. So it's very hard to identify it. So when I don't see the reward, excellent. Something else, if I give you a reward or I promise you a reward, I may expect more for it. Now, if I say do something and you get nothing for it, you'll do it. But if I tell you, if you really do this well, I'm going to give you $100.
Yeah, why not do it?
No. Then you'll really do it. But if you do it for the $100, just as schlepping along just to get by, you're not really doing it. So giving you a reward as a motivator means I expect perhaps more sometimes for what you're doing. Sounds like it's not so altruistic.
Oh, I see. The expectation being God's expectation.
Expectation is greater.
Yeah.
So in other words, God is saying, I'm going to give you these commandments, and I'm going to tell you what they are. You learn the curriculum, and what kind of test is it? The test is, how are you doing this? Are you doing this willingly or unwillingly? Are you doing this because you want to do it? Are you doing this because you got to do it? Are you doing this because you like the course, because you really appreciate the material, or because you're just trying to get out of the course and just slide through?
Matter?
Does it
As
matter?
long as you're doing it.
Sure it matters.
You do it.
Sure it matters.
No, but you say, why do you do it? Well, because Hashem told me to do it.
So some things in life don't matter why you do them. If you drive because you're afraid of the cop, or you drive because you really like the rules of the road, it's the same thing. But there's certain values that come across in things that you like to do, that you want to do, that you do it with more gusto.
Yeah, but this is different. This is different.
That's the same with Lishma and Lo Lishma.
Correct.
Yeah.
So Lishma, sometimes Lishma is greater. Read what you're saying, right, Jeff?
Yeah.
Sometimes Lishma is greater, and sometimes than Lo Lishma. But at the same time, if the analogy of the Ramban here seems to flip it around, right? He's saying if there is a reward, then it might be an additional motivator. Let's read it inside, then we can reflect more, okay? I'm going to read again. V'yadatin, therefore, go back to the beginning of the paragraph. And according to me, says the Ramban, Hu nisayon mamash, it's a real test, Yomar, ki yinei ratzah lakim lanasotchem hatishmru mitzvotav ki yotzi mi lebchem kol safek. God is testing them whether they actually will do His commandments, and He's taken any question out of their mind. Because if they don't really know if God exists, they don't really know what God can do, they don't really know what the power of God is, they haven't heard God speak to them, you can't really test them. And now we'll see whether they really love Him and whether they really want to do what He wants and His mitzvot. Every nisayon word means test. Etc. This nisayon is with good. Sometimes the master, this is a master and a slave, the master will test his servant by giving him difficult work. Will he do the work which is maxed out at his potential or not? Sometimes he'll give him greater reward. Or he'll give him a greater reward and see if he does more work. He does it with more gusto, with more enthusiasm, because of the greater avodah, the greater kavod, and the greater response he's going to get. Kinyan shemu chachmim, like the rabbis say, Ashrei adam shomeid b'yinus yotov. Happy is the person who stands up against his test. Shein l'chaber shein hakadosh baruch hu v'naseh oto. Nobody gets through this life without God testing him. Which means, Hashim v'naseh otom tiyeh yado p'tucha l'aniyim. The rich guy, he doesn't have a test about making it in life. He made it in life. What's his test? Whether he will give tzedakah. How much tzedakah will he give? The poor guy, his test is, will he be able to get through his suffering? So everybody has tests. Everybody's tested on their level. So if God gives me additional rewards, that's testing me, am I going to do it knowing that I get the reward? Or do I not really care about the reward and I really do it anyway? So it could be lishma, it could be lo lishma, but the fact that God says, here's what you have to do, and on top of it, it's good for you, the test for me is, am I going to do it, knowing how good it is for me or not? Does this make sense? Okay. Not sure, okay? Comments? So Jeff already pointed out about the part about lo shma and lo lishma.
What does that mean?
I do it for altruistic purposes, or I do it because I get a reward. Which is greater in our minds? If I do a mitzvah because God said I have to do it, or I do a mitzvah because I just feel it's a good thing to do. I do it because God said you get a reward, or I do it because God told me this is the value of the wisdom of the Almighty.
Which one is
Which one is better?
The greater is for the sake of the Torah. So you give tzedakah because of the sake of the Torah,
right?
Because it makes you feel good.
So Jeff was asking a question what the Ramban is saying. Were you not? The Ramban seems to say that the purpose of giving these laws is A, they won't have doubt about God, and B, they'll understand that these laws are for their good. Okay. And therefore they'll do it better. But Jeff's point is, but if they're doing it better, that's not as good as if they didn't know there was a reward.
Right.
True. Okay, true. But maybe not all the people would do it.
But not all the laws are like that.
Or I do have a response for you. Knowing that these are so good, you get a reward. I will do it even though I don't want the reward. So that's probably the best way to do it. Knowing that there's a reward for it, I'm going to do it, but I'm not really interested in the reward. Knowing there's a reward just shows me how good it is.
Yeah. For example, some of the kosher laws. Why can't we eat that? Well, nobody knows, but we still do it anyway. We keep it.
That's a lishma kind of thing.
Yeah. So, where's the reward is? You did it.
Well, the
so
reward
you get a reward.
Well, so you go to
you don't understand it, but you're still doing it.
So I think we're conflating not knowing why and about reward.
Right.
But so when you keep the kosher laws, when you keep the kosher laws, are you doing it because you'll be rewarded? Because you go to Olam Haba, or are you doing the kosher laws because God said keep the kosher laws?
No, it says if you do it, you'll get the reward. If you keep it, you'll get the reward. I'm keeping it, I should get a reward whether I understand it or not.
Right, but maybe the better place is say I don't want the reward. So I'm thinking that Jeff has something there, except I would say that in other words, the fact that there is a reward is an indication of how good it is. Not necessarily I should do it for the reward. The fact that there is a reward tells me it's a good thing to do.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah, but if he had kept that word out of his line, I would have just said, "Keep my commandments," without any rewards, because whether you like it or not, these are the laws that I'm giving you. You have to keep them.
Right.
Forget about the rewards. The rewards, it's up to him to figure out.
So, but Ramban says that they're good. The test is of the servant that the master says, I'm going to give you the two tests. One is you give them really hard work, which is a challenge. The other is I give you the same work, but today I'm going to double your reward, double your supper if you do this.
You try and tell that to the blacks in the South when they were slaves. What rewards did they get for doing hard work?
They didn't. That was the problem.
They didn't.
Okay, let's make it a servant, not a slave. Let's make it a servant.
Yeah.
Okay? But still, the servant has to work for the master. Okay, so I think there was something there, but I'm looking at this. The reward really is a sense of identifying how great the object, the challenge is, or how great the mitzvot are, by saying there is something good will happen to you. Okay, that's how I'd like to leave it. That's, I think, what the real shot is. Okay? Good. Let's go to Nesiva Shalom. Here we go. This should be on the first page you get. You know what? Actually, probably should have had you look at the Chumash before you put it away. So, you know what? Just grab the Chumashim again, because I want you to look at a couple of psukim to understand what he's really trying to say. So you all know the Ten Commandments. We don't got to do them again, right? We all get a handout here? Okay, good. So it's fine. So before the 10 Commandments are given. Okay. You want a Chumash?
No, handout.
Oh, okay, sorry, I took it. So before the 10 Commandments are said, I lost my place, give me a moment. When they first arrive at Sinai,
Is this in Ramban too?
no, it's not. It's in the Chumash. You can see it in the Chumash there. It's chapter 19. Beginning of chapter 19, before the actual God tells them the 10 Commandments. 10 Commandments are found in chapter 20. They arrive at Mount Sinai. They're there. They come to Midbar Sinai. And then in verse 3, 4, and 5. Okay, now 3, 4, 5, and 6. What happens in verses 19, 3, 4, 5, and 6? This is before the 10 Commandments. I understand the 10 Commandments. God says and Moshe repeats them. What happens in verse 3, 4, 5, and 6, chapter 19? Someone want to just read it because I'm running out of voice. Read it in Hebrew, read it in English. I don't really care. Just the Chumash.
19:3.
Chapter 19, verse 3, 4, 5, and 6. Not Ramban, just the Chumash.
Yeah.
Okay, tell us what it says.
Where's 3?
Chapter 19, verses 3, 4, 5, and 6. Yitro. Moshe goes up to God.
Right.
Okay, Moshe goes to God.
Moses ascended to God.
Good.
And Hashem called to him from the
mountain, saying.
The mountain saying.
So Moshe goes up to God. This is before the 10 Commandments. Moshe is going to come down and then go up again. Right. Moshe goes up to God. God communicates to Moshe. What does God say to Moshe? What does God say?
So shall you say to the house of Jacob and relate to the children of Israel.
This is what you're going to tell them. I'm telling you now what you're going to tell them before you get to the 10 Commandments. What are you going to say?
You have seen what I did to Egypt, and that I have borne you on the wings of eagles, and I have brought you to me.
Right. You saw what I did. I took you out of Egypt. Okay, so that's clear. Right. Tell the people it's me. I'm the God who took you out. You saw what I did to you, how I saved you from Egypt. And now what are you going to do?
And now if you hearken well to me and you will observe my covenant, you shall be to me the treasure above all the peoples, for mine is the entire world.
Okay, so you're going to make a covenant with me, a Brit. You're going to be a treasure for all peoples. I control the world. And in verse 6.
You shall be to me a kingdom of ministers and a holy nation. These are the words that shall speak to the children of Israel.
Okay, so what does God tell Moshe to tell the people? I took you out.
Right.
I'm the God. I'm the God who took you out. I'm going to give you the 10 Commandments soon. Didn't tell you what's going to happen afterwards, but I took you out. Second of all, what are you going to do?
You shall keep them.
So you're going to keep what? You're going to listen to my words.
Yeah.
You're going to hear my voice. You're going to keep my Brit. You're going to keep my covenant. You're going to be to me a treasure. Yeah. And you're going to be a mamlechet kohanim and a goy kadosh. What is this about the 10 Commandments?
No.
It's about before you get to the 10 Commandments, you got to do something here. This is not about accepting the 10 Commandments. So God is saying here, before you even hear the 10 Commandments, you got to commit to something. What are you going to commit to? To me. How do you commit to me? To God.
First believe in Him.
You got to believe in Him. You make a covenant. What does it mean to make a covenant with God? What are you actually going to do? What are you committing to? Accepting Him as a melech, accepting God as a king, perhaps, okay? But I'm just pointing out this is not yet accepting the 10 Commandments. This is a warm-up to the 10 Commandments.
Right.
So the Sivas Shalom is going to talk about what it means to be a Jew before you became a Jew at the Set Sinai. What's the premise? What's the precursor that you've got to sign on for before you sign on for the 10 Commandments themselves? You can't just walk in and say, I'm in. You got to accept some. There's a pretest.
You have to know that there's a God.
Right. How do you know that? And what do you know? That's on Sivas Shalom. So it's on the first page that you have there. You just hold the copy so I can show you when you turn the page.
Turn the page?
No, first page. First page at the bottom. Okay. Devar Hashem b'akdama kabbalat Torah, with the voice of God, or the word of God to the people before they receive the Torah. First page, Kuf Mem, you have it there. Okay, we good? What's out them? We're good? Everybody's got it? Okay. So he begins by just quoting the verses we just read together. Moshe goes up to Hashem, and God called him, saying, speak to the house of Jacob, speak to the children of Israel. You saw what I did to Egypt, and I took you out on the wings of eagles, and I brought you to me. If you listen to my voice, you keep my Brit, you keep my covenant, you'll be for me segula, and I'm segula, a treasure from all the nations, for I'm in the land, and you'll be for me mamlechet kohanim v'goy kadosh. These are the words.
Where did we see that we were taking Sholim?
So we were not taken up Kanfei Sholim. Okay, what do you think it means?
No, because it says, and you saw it.
So Rashi says it means, Rashi explains the Medrash, which says it means the same way that the Nesher, the eagle, protects its young, and has the young, puts the young on top of its wings, and the eagle is the highest bird, flies the highest, it's a raptor, so therefore the children are protected from all birds, other birds of prey, whereas smaller birds of prey can be attacked from on top and the below. So there's no one place that the children or the babies can be transported without being exposed. So God is saying, I took you in such a way that you were completely protected and unexposed from any danger. The Anan, the Aish, you saw Mitzrayim, they couldn't get close to you, they were drowned, etc. Okay? So, says the Sivas Shalom, okay? V'hinei b'psukim elu, These words that we just read, that you all saw, that Albert read for us in the English, we went back into the Hebrew, were said to the people before they got to Torah. What was God's intention? Why did God tell these things to the people before the Ten Commandments? The whole purpose of coming to Sinai is the Ten Commandments. What do you need? The pre-test. What do you need? The pre-lecture. What do you need to prep before you understand the Ten Commandments? What do they teach us? In the Mechilta, which is the Medrash, tells us on the pasuk Ushmartemet Briti. Rabbi Eliezer says, "What is the Brit? Ushmartemet Briti." So there are three opinions. Rabbi Eliezer says this is Brit Shabbat. Shabbat's one Brit. Rabbi Kiva says, "What's the Brit? What we normally call a Brit, which is Brit Milah, Ubrit Avodah Zarah, and the Brit of not serving idols." So there are three things mentioned in the Medrash. What exactly is this covenant? Because the covenant is not the Ten Commandments. Because the Ten Commandments didn't happen yet. So what's it going to be? Either Shabbat, which we believe they knew about before and they received the Torah. They already had the manna story, which they knew they couldn't go out on Shabbat to get the manna. They had Brit Milah, which they had to be circumcised before they ate the Korban Pesach, and they couldn't worship idols. We know that as well. So these are the three interpretations about what the commitment of the Brit really is: A, B, or C, or A and B and C. Shabbat, Brit Milah, circumcision, and not to serve idols. And this is surely this is surely, says the Netivot Shalom, all correct. Three brisses, bris Shabbos, bris Milah, and bris Avodah Zarah. So why did God have to tell them these particular three bris? So first of all, why did God need to give them a prologue to accept before the Ten Commandments, which is the Torah? And second of all, why do we need these specifically three britot? And here's what he says. This is actually such a powerful message about what it means to be a Jew. The Torah and the Ten Commandments were given to the Jewish people, the chosen people who were chosen. As it says, I took you on eagle's wings, I brought you to me, which means, I chose you to be my treasure, as it explains, okay? But in these verses, before it tells you how to practice as a Jew, God says, before I tell you how you have to practice being a Jew, I got to tell you what a Jew is. There's a pintel yid within each of you that has to commit to something before you even begin to actually act it out. You know when people talk about, I feel Jewish? They say, I don't do Judaism, but I feel Jewish. I got a Jewish heart. Do you ever hear this? All the time, right? So we always say, ba, 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 ba. And the answer is, ba, 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 because they missed the key, which is to do Jewish. And they don't really feel Jewish. They only feel Jewish when they get chicken soup, right? But they only feel Jewish once a year. They don't really feel Jewish. It says in the Tivot Shalom, there's something about feeling Jewish that is internalized, that's even a precursor to doing the mitzvot. It doesn't say it's not a standalone now because we have the commandments. But this is it. Mahut Yehudi Shelav Nitna Torah. There's a specificity, uniqueness of the Jew that you're committed to, which the Torah is given. Shalom Amrokan Mitzvot Masiyot. This is not a commandment to keep my covenant, a practical commandment. We're in the 613. What is it? It's a pre-commandment. Mahu Yudi Lo Nitnu Torah Mitzvot. What is it to be a Jew? What's the substrate upon which you can put the mitzvot to be done on top of that? So this is the essence of being a Jew. Without this essence, without this pnimiot, this internal little pintel yid, you can't do the mitzvot on top of that.
What about people who convert to Judaism? How do they get that? So that's an excellent question. You have to say that their souls always meant to be Jewish, or they had a soul, someone that they stood at Sinai. Somewhere along there was some mystical connection to them. It's a good question. This is what means now you listen to me when God says here before the Ten Commandments, right here in chapter 19, listen to my voice. God doesn't say listen to my commandments. Like it says in other places, El B'kol, listen to my voice. What does it mean, my voice? Hainu, shetitu libchem l'shma ma'akadosh baruch hu rotzeh mimkem. Listen to what God wants from you. L'shma b'chol davar ta'kavanah pnimiyat ta'tmuna b'chol Hashem. Listen to what's inside, what God requests of you. Ma ritzonah hakadosh baruch. What does God really want from you? Not only what to do, but what does God want internally inside of what God wants for you? This is the first thing that a Jew has to ask. Not just only to feel Jewish, but you got to say, what does God really want from me?
Right? Now part of it is like, mitzvot. But the mitzvot only work if you understand what God wants from you, which is really commitment. Someone said before about Kabbalat Hashem. Shiazin l'kol Hashem, to listen to God's voice. What does God want me? What does God really want from you? So before God can give them the commandments of how to do this, you got to know, what do I want from you? What do I want from you? To make a covenant with you, to make you a treasured people, to build a connection. What does that mean? That means every time I go into the treasure house, I know it's the king's treasure house. And if I'm God's treasure, I know that I serve God. So the precursor to doing the mitzvot is my connection not automatically, my connection not automatically to everything that I do, I'm doing for Hashem. Now, how do I get close to Hashem? That's the mitzvot. But the precursor, the pnimiot, the inside, is to know that I'm serving Hashem. That's the connection. Everything I do, I'm serving Hashem. When I get up in the morning and I say, what am I doing today? I'm serving Hashem. Yeah, I'm going to my job, I'm going to my class, I'm getting in my car, but I'm serving Hashem. That's the precursor. If you miss that, then the mitzvot is simply just hollow.
So I'm thinking about the three, right?
We have to still explain, go back and talk about the three.
I'm thinking about Abraham now.
Yeah.
When was the first Shabbat?
When is the first Shabbat?
We know the circumcision.
When is the first Shabbat for God? Okay. So
when does Shabbat start?
So it doesn't mean, first of all, we believe that Avram kept all the mitzvot. Second of all, let's assume he did not keep Shabbat. It happens when the Jewish people are surely before they've reached Sinai. It happened in Parsha, the last week's Parsha, when they got the manna, and they were told there was no manna on Shabbat. And they were told not to go out and collect the manna. They can't bring the manna in because there is no Shabbat. There is no manna on Shabbat. They right away understood that there is Shabbat. That's the first time there's Shabbat, as we know in the Torah. Written black on white.
But we know Abraham did.
Yeah, we know he kept. We believe Abraham kept all the mitzvot, but it's not found. All the mitzvot are not found in Bereshit. Okay. We do know. The other thing we know is that the Israelites had scrolls about their history. So they surely had a scroll not just about Abraham, they had a scroll about the creation story. So they knew that God rested on Shabbat. So it may not have been a mitzvah that they knew about, but they surely knew it was a day of rest. Okay. The Medrash says actually that one of the things Paro did when he made decrees against the Jewish people, he took away Shabbat. And that's why the people were so upset. They lost their Shabbat. They came to Moshe, what'd you do? We now have to go out to the work 7 days a week. But it doesn't say that in the Psukim directly. These are all Midrashim, okay?
So I have to talk about the Brit, and I have to ask, if we have a contract,
yes.
So why are so many bad things happening?
Well, that's a general question. Let's hold off on that, okay? It's a good question. So first let's see what the Britos are. Odyesh Lefaresh, this is the right column on Kuf Mem Aleph, on the last right column. Odyesh Lefaresh, Vatam Shema B'Koli, God says, now listen to my voice. B'Koli Daika, because in other words, the clearness of the voice. Listen to the voice. Hainu Sheyudi Yishma Tamidat Kol Hashem Adaber Elav. God, the Jew has to listen and hear God's voice always speaking to him. As it says in the Beit Avram, this is the precursor of this present Solomon Rebbe, his teacher. Shala Pasuk Vaikra Moshe Vaydaber Hashem Elav, where God calls to Moshe and speaks to him. This is the beginning of the book of Leviticus, which means Vaikra Lashon Nistav Elon Parshmi Korei Uperish. Leviticus opens Vaikra Moshe. He called to Moshe. Who called? Vaydaber Hashem Elav. Call Kriya Shema Moshe. Every time he heard the voice, Yodash Vaydaber Hashem Elav. He knew God spoke to him. He understood that everything that happened in his life, God is speaking to him. So this Chassidus is saying, when something happens to you, the lesson you take away from it is God is showing me a lesson, even if it's not applicable to God. In other words, when Leviticus opens up, the first words in Leviticus are Vayikra El Moshe. He called to Moshe. Now, who called to Moshe? God. But it only says later in the pasuk, Vaydaber Hashem Elav. But Moshe understood that if he ever heard a voice, if he ever had an experience, there was a reason God made that experience happen to him. There's always a lesson in everything that happens that God is trying to show you something. And I'll give you a couple of examples here. He gives an example from Moshe Leib Misasav, the Sasva Rebbe. One time, one time, the wagon driver asked Rav Moshe Leib to pick up an object that fell off the wagon. He says, you're the passenger, get off and pick up the object. And the Rabbi Moshe Yeres was a great rabbi. He was an older gentleman. Like he wasn't like a bum on the street. So a mechubadik person. He said back to the wagon driver, "Eina yachol." He said, "I can't do it. So I'm unable to do it." So the guy, the wagon driver, who in this case was a non-Jew, said to him, "Yachol atah she'ein charotza." No, you can do it. You don't want to do it. Okay. So the wagon driver says, "Pick up the object." He says, "I can't do it." He said, "Not you can't. Not you." He said, "Well, I can't do it." He says, "You can do it. You don't want to do it, right?" And so what does that mean? So that's just an instant. You guys would brush it off and say, stupid wagon driver, right? Wagon driver is like a trucker, okay? What does he know? And he heard from this. When this event happened, he began thinking, why did this happen to him? He said, God is teaching me a lesson. Everything that we have in life, we can do. Every challenge God gives to us, we actually can do. But if we say we can't, it means we don't want to. We can rise up to the occasion. When I say I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. Yeah, you can. If you organize your brain, if you organize yourself, you can do it. It's just a lot of work. But you don't want to. You don't invest the effort. Okay, so you don't want to do it. It means you don't want to. So Kadosh Baruch Hu, you don't want to do what God wants from you. V'chein siper me'Baal Shem Tov Hakadosh Zuchosei Yagen Aleinu. Story with the Baal Shem Tov. One time, this is an age when it was very rare to find people being Mechalel Shabbos. People desecrating Shabbos. So one time, the Baal Shem Tov saw a person being Mechalel Shabbos. And he says, why would God have me see this person being Mechalel Shabbos? Now you probably say, what a bad person that is. That's not what the Baal Shem Tov said. The lesson is for me. God's giving me a lesson that I was exposed to this. Not about the bad guy. Not about that guy. Everything is for me. What does it speak to me? Sometime I heard something about another scholar and I did not let it go by. I was disparaged. Another individual was a scholar was disparaged and I didn't stand up for him. I didn't deflect it. I didn't reject it. And therefore, the same way that Shabbat is the uniqueness of the week, the scholar is the unique part within the Jewish people. So in seeing this person who was Mechalel Shabbat equals Talmid Chacham, I saw Chilul of a Talmid Chacham, and I didn't say anything. So the lesson he picked up was not about the person's Mechalel Shabbat, it was about how he acted in a different place. So in other words, it says in the Sivot Shalom, not only do I have to have, before I accept the mitzvot, to know that my job is to follow God, I got to know that everything that happens in this world, God is telling me something. Now,
would you like some water or something?
Maybe a little bit of hot coffee. Just fill it.
That in order to get this done, you're going to have to wait for a lot. But today, I'm not sure like in Shvius, then I would say like you can be a couple, you don't know that. Correct.
No milk, thank you. No milk. I'll have more in 5 minutes when we stop. Okay, so in other words, okay. So in other words, everything that I do, God is speaking to me, and I have to hear His voice. That's why God says in this pasuk that not only took you out of Egypt, now you if you listen to my voice. What voice? The voice we know about Hashem is the voice of the Ten Commandments. No, this is the voice that speaks to us in the things that happen every day, that you just say is random events. What is God showing me? Why did this happen to me? What's the lesson? I never think like that. So therefore, Komash, continuing on, there's the 3 lines in the bottom of the right column. Komash Yudi Over B'chayav. Anything that happens to me, happens to the Jew in his life, Komash Urev Shomea, Hakolu Kol Hashem Medaber. Everything that happens, God gives him a purpose. There's something, a message in there for that person. This is what God speaks to them before they get to Torah, and before they get the 10 Commandments, says This is what the first premise to be a Jew is, to look for that voice of God in everything that happens. I'm serving God, I'm connected to God, everything that happens in the world, not just mitzvot, not just Avariyah, but everything that happens is about connecting me to the Almighty.
It's so logical.
Well, I agree. So we're doing this.
A person has utter faith in Hashem. Then no matter what, and I'm not there yet, no matter what happens in your life, you're going to accept it. You'll always have a happy life.
But I think that, plus even a little more, everything that happens in my life has a purpose. If I go right, there's a reason why I went down that street, not the other street.
Exactly.
Right. So every moment of life has validity, has validation, has significance, is a connection to God. Not that I serve, when I serve mitzvot, I serve God. I understand that. Right? Doing mitzvot can be very difficult, and there's a whole process of mitzvot, and that's the 10 commandments and the 613 commandments. But this is about before you even get there. Okay? Now, why are there these three britot? What are the three covenants that were made? One was what again? Shabbat? What was the second one? Brit Milah. And the third one was Avodah Zarah. So here in the Sivot Shalom suggests what the actually three things actually seem to really represent. This is the left column on Kuf Mem Aleph. The identity of the Jew is these three covenants: Shabbat, Milah, Avodah Zarah. Ukamar Shlo Ayri B'Nogel Mitzvot Shabbat, Milah, V'Yisur Avodah Zarah. It can't really be about Shabbat, Brit Milah, and idol worship, because that's about commandments. And what is God speaking to the people? Before commandments. So it can't be about a covenant to do Shabbat, because we haven't gotten there yet. It can't be about a covenant to do Brit Milah, because we haven't gotten there yet. It can't be about a covenant not to keep Avodah Zarah. That's the second commandment in 10 commandments. So what is it really? It's about a vow.
Those three were taka, the ones that happened before.
Yes, but they're going to happen again. They're all going to be included in the Targum Mitzvot. So why is God speaking to them these three specific ones?
Because that's the only thing I have to go on until...
So that's a simple pshat. These are the ones that were accepted before. The Sivot Shalom says yes, but it's more than that. It's not just the actual covenant of the item. The item represents a certain connection, a certain relationship with me and the Almighty. Okay, and that's what he's going to explain. You can argue about this paragraph, but it really is very beautiful. Which is as follows. This tells you what are the key values to being a Jew before you get to mitzvot. What makes the identity, the persona of being a Jew, which is not Brit Shabbat, what it is, but it is what it stands for. Brit Shabbat in Yonai Ava. The Brit of Shabbat is loving God. As it says, Beini u'beinechem, Beini u'bein bnei Yisrael oti li'olam. That for me and the Jewish people, Shabbat is the sign. Shemavad kol mitzvot shne'amru b'Shabbat, etzem ha'Shabbat is avah. Just keeping Shabbat, besides all the minutiae, all the laws of Shabbat, just the Shabbat itself is the unique connection of how the Jewish people love God. So the Brit of Shabbat represents how a Jew loves Hashem.
How did he prove that?
He says because it's so unique among all the mitzvot, it says, Oti beini u'beinechem.
Okay, so it's a note, it's a sign.
Okay, I said, Sha'avodat Hashem b'Shabbat Kodesh b'avat Hashem shitachlit eidi. He is suggesting, I said, you can argue about this. I can't prove it to you, but he says he's suggesting the Brit of Shabbat represents the ultimate loving connection of the people to God. Right? Yoter mi Shabbat, Noter mi b'nei Yisrael shemot Shabbat, the Shabbat shemar b'nei Yisrael. So that's the key connection, the key loving connection of love, of altruistic, of love, of tight connection is Shabbat. Yudihu mi sheyesh bo avad Hashem. What is a Jew? So he says that what makes a Jew, he loves Hashem. This is not sexual love, it's not platonic love, it's a connection, a close connection. It's like a brotherly love, not brothers of Yaakov and Esau. Okay, real brothers. Brit Milah, what's Brit Milah? Here, Brit Sheyudim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is the covenant the Jew makes with God. Shemoser Lo Yitbarach Et Kol Chukotav. Now here's what he says, a little interesting. He says, you're giving over to God all of your wants and desires. I guess he's viewing Brit Milah, the being circumcision on the penis, as a way to circumcise those which represents the lust of the human being. Sexual lust. So he uses that and extends it in all kinds of lusts and wants and desires, not only sexuality. Anything you really want, because we know the strongest pull that we have in the animalistic part of ourselves is sex. How many great people are brought down by sexual liaisons that are inappropriate? It's a survival of the species. God built it into the person like He builds into every animal to ensure their own survivability. Sometimes we misuse it. So in other words, by Brit Milah, you're putting a curb onto what you want to do in life. It's no longer unbridled lust. And that's not just about once again about sex, it's about everything. So Shabbat is about loving God. Brit Milah is a covenant. And everything you want in this world is really got to be through Hashem. Everything I really want, I want to do for Hashem. Ubrit Avodah Zarah, and what's the covenant of Avodah Zarah? Hainu abrit shekarat HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael al Emunah. Now this is a little more difficult to compare the two together. The covenant with idol worship, against idol worship, is about belief in Hashem.
Because what is idol worship all about? Denying that there's a belief in God. What does idol worship really mean? I don't believe there's one God. I believe there are many gods. I don't believe God made the world. I believe this idol made the world. How did idol worship come into being? They believed in stars and powers as representatives of God and then forgot about God. So serving idols is about leaving the belief in God. So the third pinnacle, the third of this triad, is really God created, God controls, God rules, all Bruim. God created, God is, God was, God will be for everything. And therefore, says in the Siyot Shalom, these three covenants are not about doing things, because that only happens in the Ten Commandments. It's about believing in what these three things are: loving God, ultimate connection to God. Secondly, is about controlling your lust to serve God, and the third thing is to have the emunah, the trust in the Almighty. So this is what the Pintel Yid really needs. A, to see God in everything, and through these specific parts of the triad is the way we get close to what Kadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, and let's skip to the next paragraph. Let's go to the bottom page. This is the reason of these psukim that are written before the giving of Torah. Adam Yisrael. This is what you have to do to be a Jew who is given the Ten Commandments. A Jew is a person who carries out the voice that God speaks to him, who keeps the covenant and being skulah from all the people. She gives everything over to God, as the pasuk says, I'll be magnified with you, Jewish people, because the Torah is given to you as well. And that's why you're called, he says next paragraph, Mamlechet Kohanim V'Goy Kadosh. It's not about doing mitzvot. To be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, it's not about doing the mitzvot. It's something that comes before the mitzvot, that you need before you makabel the Torah. That's exactly what it means. You're a guy, you're a nation, that you have a full of kedusha to recognize the connection to the Almighty. Okay? And it's not one of the mitzvot. It's the opposite. It's a precursor to doing the mitzvot. Okay, skip down to the bottom paragraph on Kuf Mem Bet. Same thing. So now he says, and you'll understand now in Parshat Kedoshim, which we're not going to get to today. Of course, Parshat Kedoshim comes up in many weeks. The first words of Parshat Kedoshim are. Let me just read you the pasuk. We're almost finished this in Leviticus. Chapter 19. Speak to the people, say to them, Kedoshim to you, be holy, ki kadosh Hashem Elokeichem, because I'm holy. So that's not one of the 613 mitzvot to be holy. So once again, being holy, what does that mean? That's a precursor. Before you can do the mitzvot, you have to be holy. How do you be holy? What he's telling you now. This is before the mitzvot are. Lama mitzvah koshim to you in the not minyan tarig mitzvot ki ein zu mitzvah pratit. This is not a specific mitzvah. Lazatz Moshe Yudi. To be a Jew, you've got to be a guy kadosh to recognize it all comes from God, and that's even, and then God is giving you the Torah on top of that, etc., 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 etc. And therefore, these psukim are all about what a Yehudi is. About what a Yehudi is. Now,
that is not mitzvah.
It's not. If you look at those who count the mitzvot, they don't count it.
Yeah, but why not? I mean, it says clearly,
so that's what he's trying to explain. In other words, it's because being holy is a general theme. How do you be holy? You normally would read chapter 19 of Leviticus, be holy by doing this, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. Because the rest of the chapter is all different commandments. So it's a general theme. But what he's trying to say is that's exactly the point. To do the mitzvot, you have to first accept really about being kadosh. What God really wants from us. This is the whole concept that he's trying to explain here about the precursor to what the mitzvot are. Now, so this is the piece of the Netziv Shalom. Now, just one point to this is to hear the voice of God is very complex. It's very difficult. You got to search for it. It's hard to find the voice of Hashem. But the Nesivot says in another piece, which we're not going to get a chance to do, the reason that the Ten Commandments are listed is because that's to tell you that God speaks to Jewish people in every generation. He doesn't speak the Ten Commandments. 10 Commandments happen one time. That's what we read in the Parsha. But the fact that God can speak to the Jew with the precursor understanding of what a Jew is, you got to look for the voice of Hashem. He quotes a story about the Talmidim of the Baal Shem Tov were learning once, and they heard the Kolot Devrakim, the thunder and lightning from Sinai. Sounds like a Bubba Maisa, right? It's a Hasidic Maisa. In other words, they were on such a level, they could feel that they were standing at Sinai. They were able to see that, they were able to feel that, they were able to tremble with that. Because if you look carefully enough, you can find where the voice of God speaks to every individual. And if you can't, then somewhere inside of you it's being heard. And the challenge that we all have really is to find that pintala where HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaks to us and recognize everything that happens to us. God is really speaking indirectly and directly to what happens in our lives. Okay. Woo!
Beautiful.
Okay. Let's take a 5-minute break.
Moshe.
Yeah.
Question.